Welcome back everyone. This week we're going to learn how to make a crème vichyssoise. So if you want to know about the origin of the vichyssoise, what it is and why is it confused all the time with a very similar soup, well, keep watching. And now for a bit of history. So what is the difference between the crème vichyssoise and the potage parmentier? Both soups are exactly similar. They're all based on leek, potato and cream, except that one is served hot and one is served cold. The first one that is served hot is called the potage parmentier. And why is it called like this? Because back in the 1700s there was one important person in France called Antoine Augustin Parmentier, which was a pharmacist, botanist, agriculturist, and he was claiming that the potato was a great source of nutrition and it should be used all across France and to solve the famine problem, the malnutrition growing rampant in Paris. At the time, the king, the church, which was poisonous, and it did not want that crazy idea to go forward. But eventually, through the years, he managed to be given a small parcel of land to demonstrate his idea, and some people tried to grow potatoes and everybody realized, yes, potatoes is actually useful, you can eat it. Unfortunately, the man died, but as he died, of course, his legacy lived on and the potato was used in all kinds of preparation and of course in soups. And one of the old soup, the basic soup, was leek and potato soup, and it was called like this, and it was renamed afterwards the potage parmentier in remembrance of that man that made that whole potato story possible. So that was the hot soup. I've got some traces you can see on the screen here. I think in the 1800 in an old cookbook you can see already potage parmentier, so it's been around in France. It was done in France. I'm sure in England there was similar soup with different name, but that was the creation of that warm soup. But what about the vichyssoise? Okay, so later on in the 1900s came about that there was another soup also made with leeks and potato served cold, and people said, well, is this a French soup? Or is it an American soup? Because people start to say, no, this is an American invention. So I've done a bit of research, and it so happened that a French chef called Louis Dia, he was working at the Ritz in New York, in the 1900s was looking at making a cold soup, at inventing a cold soup, and apparently he would have used this original Parmentier recipe, added some onion into it, some milk and cream, and created a simile of that soup that you could serve cold. Okay, and a lot of people are debating this idea. And I've done some research for the name vichyssoise in all my historical records of food in France. I have not found anything called vichyssoise, so I believe that it is a story that actually makes sense, and it is most than likely that that French chef in America created that new types of soup for the local market in America, and it's been labeled and known and be very, very famous in America rather than France. It arrived in France later on, and that's for the history. So if you wonder what is the difference between the two, the Parmentier is served hot, it does not contain onion, and the vichyssoise is served cold. It's got an addition of milk and it's got onion in it. That's the whole difference. Now, in terms of the recipe, we're gonna try to make the actual vichyssoise recipe with the onions, with the potato, with the leek, and I'm gonna add my own personal touch, and we'll see how it looks like. So get to your pans, get ready, and let's start cooking. In order to make a crème vichyssoise, you're gonna need the following ingredients: about 500 grams of potato, which is about 1 pound, and 1 pound of leeks. I've got a bit of the green part and the white part, thinly sliced. I'm going to use a little bit of chives. I've got 1 medium-sized onion, about a cup, which is about 250 ml of milk. Same for the cream, and 50 grams of butter. For the cookware, we're going to use a large saucepan, and you're going to need also to be using a stick blender and a sieve. We're going to start straight on the stove in a large saucepan, and we're going to start by melting all of the butter. As soon as the butter is melted, we're going to add the onions and the leeks. So we're using a low heat for that recipe because we don't want to have any coloration. That is very, very important. And we're going to have this vegetable to sweat. And that's what we call that in French. So we're going to pre-cook them in butter. Put them all in and blend well with all of the butter. And you keep on a low heat, and we're going to leave this to cook uncovered very gently for 4 to 5 minutes. Now after 5 minutes, what we're going to do well, we're gonna move the leeks just to do a visual check in terms of temperature. Okay, what we want is this, a clean pan without any traces of brown. If you see some slight traces of brown, your heat is too high, so you're gonna reduce your heat, because that blend is gonna have to be cooking for a further 10 minutes at a very, very low heat. Onions take about 15 minutes to cook, so same thing here. I'm gonna leave this in my pan for another 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna add the potatoes. After 10 minutes, I can show you again, no coloration. It is time to add all of the potato. You're gonna drain the water out and put all of the potatoes in. And we're gonna mix that with the leeks and onion. Next, we're gonna cover this with water. So it's about about 3 cups. Let me add a bit more. All right, let's have a look. Yeah, almost 4 cups of water for me. So you don't want too much. We just want a few centimeters above the potato. We're gonna clean the sides and we're gonna bring this to a boil on a high heat. As soon as your water has reached the boil, we're gonna turn the heat down to medium. We're gonna add a tablespoon of rock salt as well as a bouquet garni. And we're gonna cook this uncovered onto medium heat for about 30 minutes to make sure the potatoes are absolutely cooked. After 30 minutes, you can turn your heat off. Your potatoes should be cooked. So we're just gonna remove the bouquet garni, and we're gonna use a stick blender and process the soup. All right, so stick blender is in, and I'm gonna mix everything. Once you're done processing, you should get a nice, smooth, thick paste. And this is the consistency I've got and the color. And we need now to pass this soup through a sieve into another container. So you can either use a bowl, but for me, I'm gonna use a clean pan and pass the soup straight in so we can add the milk and the cream. So the process is very simple. I'm taking a clean pan. I'm gonna take some soup, pass it through, and use a spoon to make sure I press down if you have any bits of potato, and you really pass everything as much as you can through the sieve. Okay, I'm done. This is the end result. You may wonder, why are we passing the soup here? Because remember, this is a soup made in the Ritz in New York. It's a fine dining establishment. So of course, this type of soup are not farmhouse soup with plenty of fiber in it, pieces of potatoes. Clients will expect something really elegant, really smooth. This is why we want a product with just the taste, the flavors, and no chunks. Now, of course, this is a little bit too thick, so this is where we're gonna be adding all of the cream. You can do it in 2 times, with half the cream and half the milk, and then mix well. All right, so I can add the rest, up, and the cream all in. Now, once you're here, this is the color you get. You get a nice, smooth, and a nice kind of whitish color. You can taste your soup now and make sure you got enough salt. You should have just enough, but if it's not enough, or if it's not to your taste, you can add a little bit of seasoning. Okay, so once you've tasted, we're gonna put the heat on and bring that to the boil. As soon as the mix boil, you can turn the heat off again, and we are done. We usually bring this to the boil to sterilize the soup. Okay, and the last step now is to have this soup to cool down. So I'm going to transfer this into a glass bowl while filtering it one last time through a sieve. And that's it, we are done. So as I said, the last step consists of passing your soup again through a sieve, and I'm using a glass container because glass does not have any taste to it. If you use a metal container, there's chances that your soup, because of the cream and the dairy product, you may have a light metal taste at the end after several hours. So glass is really neutral. So always use glass for this type of preparation with cream, because cream has got tendency of reabsorbing any residual taste, being from the container or even from your fridge. So the step consists of passing this. I'm going to leave this to cool down at room temperature and then cover it and put it in the fridge for several hours until it is totally fridge cold. As soon as your crème vichyssoise is cold enough, it really has to be really, really cold, it is time to serve. Now, for me, I'm doing something a little bit special for the serving, which is something that is done in France with the vichyssoise. It's to add a little bit of whipped cream that I've made here with an addition of chives in. So I'm going to use a good tablespoon of chives. Okay, and I'm gonna blend this with a freshly made whipped cream, and I'm gonna use this and make quenelles. So if you want more chives in it, you can, but it's pretty strong. So what you want to do is to beat the cream a bit more to reach that almost buttery consistency. You see, that's kind of very stiff, so we can work it with a spoon and make quenelle. And now for the service, so very simple, and we're going to use a deep plate. I've got some chives to decorate, and I've got my cold soup on the side here, and it's become very, very creamy. So you don't want to have too much, and it is meant to be thick. So you know what, 2 spoons, like a little bit more. And I'm going to finish this off with a quenelle of whipped cream infused with chives. Now for the quenelle, I'm going to want to have something quite large, something like this, okay, in the middle of the plate. And just for the coloring, just having this little bit of chive on here, and it has to be very discreet. You don't want to overdo it, and it's all about the creaminess. You remove this, and voila. Here we have the Crème Vichyssoise glacé. Now to finish off, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to go on the side of the plate here. I've got a little bit of whipped cream with the soup. Wow, really cold. And really the flavor, it's amazing. The flavor really of the potato and the leeks, just with the salt, they're really, really spot on. They're really amplified by the milk and the cream. Now I understand why this soup really has been really so well received, because if you're in the summer at the moment and you're looking for something fresh and with really a silkiness to it, that this vichyssoise is spot on. But that's it, that completes the video recipe of the week, and we've learned how to make a classic crème vichyssoise glacé. Now, I don't eat cold soup very often, but I have to say that when you go out of your comfort zone like this and you try something new, it is so interesting. I mean, that soup, even though you don't have any stock, it is only vegetables and salt and water, of course, and cream, but still it has an amazing taste. It is full of flavor, and it is really fresh, and I really would like you to try that recipe. So as always, if you have any question about that recipe, drop me a comment in the comment section. And if you make that vichyssoise, always I like to see your pictures on Instagram, hashtag French Cook Academy. Now don't forget, you can also join me on Patreon or join an online cooking class on the culinary school. And there's a new course coming this month that's going to be all about French desserts. So I hope you enjoyed that recipe, and I'll see you all next week. Take care all, bye bye.